Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing good today. Thank you so much for joining us in this panel discussion. I am Shilok Mukkati, and I will be your host and moderator for this evening. This is the second and final panel discussion for the Cyberblog India's 2022 conference titled Abuse and Harassment in Cyberspace Beyond the Perceived Notions of Mainstream. The objective of this conference are to initiate discussion on the threats faced by the LGBTQIA plus community members on the internet, to facilitate sharing of niche stories and first-hand experience of community members, to raise awareness about the challenges faced by the community while dealing with the cybercrime incident. Over the last 6 weeks, the Cyberblog India team has hosted 12 Instagram live sessions with individuals, panelists. These live sessions have finally culminated into two panel discussions. The first one we had yesterday, and the second, which we are having right now. I would like to take this moment to briefly introduce what the Cyberblog India is and what the team does. Starting in 2014, the Cyberblog India has invested in multiple ways to create a cyber safe tomorrow for India. The team runs a national award winning blog with avid readers from across the globe. The team was one of the first organizations to utilize WhatsApp as a platform for helpline and assisting the victims. In the duration that the Cyberblog India has been operational, the team has conducted 450 plus workshops and webinars on internet safety, digital citizenship, cybercrime awareness, and careers in cyberspace. Further, the team has provided legal assistance and advisory service in more than 12,500 cybercrime cases, including financial frauds, blackmailing, cyberbullying, identity theft, revenge pornography, etc. Before we start with our panel discussion, I would like to alert our community that please be humane in the chat box. The conversation in the live session could be triggering, so please do not watch this if you feel you're not ready for it. Post our session, we will add support groups on our Instagram handle at in Cyberblog, which you can reach out for help. Today, I'm joined by 5 amazing individuals from different walks of life. Thank you everyone for joining this panel discussion today. Before any further ado, it is time to introduce the panelists for the discussion. First, we have Gazal Dhaliwal, the lead writer for Netflix series Mismatched, and has written for films such as Qarib Qarib Singlle, Lipstick Under My Burkha, and Ek Ladki Ko Dekha To Aisa Laga. Welcome, Gazal.
Hi. Hi. Thank you.
So we are joined by Pearl Daruwalla, a gender non-conforming lesbian currently working as diversity and inclusion manager at Impresario Entertainment Hospitality Private Limited. Welcome, Pearl.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank
We
you for
also
having me.
It is our pleasure. So we also have Shruti Sharada, one of my dearest friend, a queer feminist writer, strategist, and gender-based violence activist, former journalist, and the winner of the National Laadli Media Award 2020. Welcome, Shruti. It is
Hi,
a
so
pleasure
happy
to
to be
have you
here.
here. The next panelist on the panel is Sauvik Acharji, a queer activist, writer, and storyteller who has been named among the top 16 poets by Banani Vista, currently working as a diversity and inclusion lead. I regret to inform you that Sauvik will not be able to join us today. We are also joined by Mohammed, who's also one of my dearest friends, a safe space coordinator at UN Women and co-founder of Intersex Human Rights India. Hi, Mohammed. Welcome to the panel.
Hello, everyone. I'm trying to match my exhaustive energy with my happy face.
I'm so glad that you could make it. And finally, I am Shilok Mukkati, a gender columnist at Deccan Herrald. With this, we are all set for the discussion. I request our audience to join us through the chat box and send their questions as they have. If you have any relevant questions that you would like to ask a specific panelist, please write their name in the comments. Okay. Further ado, we are going to start with our first question. Online harassment incidents involving queer individuals often go unreported. Moreover, survivors often hesitate to report. How can this gap be reduced in the number of incidents happening and the number of incidents getting reported? It could be fear and social construct consideration, streamlining reporting procedures, creating hope for legal assistance, legal and policy changes. For example, it could be about gender neutral laws. It could be role of stakeholders such as police, prosecution, and judicial officers in the criminal justice delivery system. So, yes. Um, Whoever, or shall I pick?
Yeah, I think that's the best. You pick.
That's the best. Okay, Gazal, would you like to go first?
Um, okay, so I honestly think that the other panelists on
Uh-huh.
the panel today have done more active work in
Mm-hmm.
this space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll just share what my experiences have been on the internet, and if in any way
Yes.
we could derive some
Mm-hmm.
ideas from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have I have been in the online space because I think I'm the probably the oldest panelist here. I've been um, online since the Orkut era. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you guys have ever even heard of Orkut. So there was Orkut, then of course we moved to Facebook. Facebook goes on. There's Instagram today. Instagram, I would say, thankfully, has been a lot more comfortable space for me. Facebook is somewhere a place where I still used to, I would, get called names, like various kinds of um, harassing names, abuses
Mm-hmm.
for because of my trans identity.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, I used to be like, okay, you know what, I should allow people to say whatever they want. I mean, it has to be free speech. It's a space where I would, you know, at the end of the day, internet should be a space where we can have communications, we can have conversations, discussions. So even though it's hurtful for me, I'll work on myself. Let me not delete comments. Let me just, hear everyone out, maybe engage with them. And I
Mm-hmm.
tried to do that for a while, but it was only more and more triggering for me. It was more disturbing till
Mm-hmm.
I decided that um, this is my profile. I get to choose who gets free speech here,
Mm-hmm.
um, just as they get to decide whether I get to speak freely at their profile or not. So that's when I consciously decided to start blocking people. It's just didn't come naturally to me because I've never been a person who would shut somebody up. I would want to have communications, conversations. Um, so I think that's one very important thing that most I don't know if that's the case with a lot of queer people. That's the way they are also on the internet. And from whatever I know, a lot of them think that if we engage with people, if we try to teach them, maybe there'll be understanding. And while that works for some people, but I think we also have to set a threshold. The threshold has to be our mental health. um,
Absolutely.
so that's on the individual level. I think your own sanity is the most important thing. You have to be
True.
I have a public account, but it's it's totally cool if you want to be private, if you want that to be your own space. So that's on the individual level. I think on a platform level, like places like Facebook and Instagram, I think they need to then their rules need to be more stringent when it comes to uh, you know harassment or bullying being reported, queer harassment or queer bullying being reported. I know of instances where Instagram has let go of abusers, saying, there isn't enough proof, or this doesn't, cross the limit of online harassment. And when somebody's actually uh, shamed a queer person for being who they are. So I really think that we have to take this up very strongly with, say, Instagram or Facebook as well. That they must create more stringent rules. Stuff like even blocking somebody, deleting somebody's profile, not just deleting their particular comment or post. Only then will people truly learn.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Unfortunately, punishment um, works with some people. With some people,
True.
communication works, but with others,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be punishment.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Gazal. Thank you for sharing that. And it is important. And sometimes I have kept my profile private for past 2 years, and also being an artist, sometimes you have to be on a public account, because that's how you get work. Otherwise,
Yes.
you need to show that, like, your work and your presence. You need to create your brand. So it's also, you make a decision whether you want to be public or private. And yes, I completely understand how blocking is one of the, it's the easiest thing that we can do, at least, than, like, stressing ourselves, fighting with the particular abuser, or so and so. Thank you so much for sharing that. Pearl, would you like to share your opinion?
Yeah, sure. I think, I mean, the community faces a lot of stigma and discrimination online. Uh, and like the whole process of it like
Mm-hmm.
builds on the concept of fear, like right from before 37 being decriminalized, there were so many cases where online dating apps were used as uh, platforms where the community would be harassed, it would be bullied, it would be
Mm-hmm.
extorted, and not only by straight men but other queer people as well, right? Even government officials. Why should I talk about general public, but even government officials, because a lot of people don't even understand what is being queer,
Yes.
and ignorance leads to so much of arrogance, and that leads to so much of violence.
Yes.
So I think that's what has been the root cause of people not being able to even report it, because they themselves feel that, oh, being I am queer, that's why there's some fault in me, which is why
Mm-hmm.
they have the others have the right to harass me or bully me or extort me. Or when you
True.
look at when you look at online apps or dating apps for women,
Mm-hmm.
how many apps have you seen which are actually safe for women to use for other women, or like queer women? Like
True.
most of
True.
the times, at least when I have access to these apps, I've found usually men disguised as women trying to flirt with you or trying to get physical with you or sexual with you. And
Mm-hmm.
it makes you feel like disgusted.
Yes, yes. And how do you kind of reduce this gap? Like, you have any personal experience, or,
I
like,
think
have, yeah.
I think awareness is the key to this, right, and right from the school education is what we need
Mm-hmm.
awareness about, because I think bullying starts from that age.
True.
like you know uh, I I I have seen so many times that when there's a kid who might be a little effeminate or might be a little masculine more than
Mm.
the societal norms of what they should be,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly parents tell their kids to stay away from them, or kids
True.
think it's their right to bully them or harass them. And
Mm-hmm.
even when they go ahead and complain to the teachers and parents,
Mm-hmm.
the first answer they get is, oh, but you are not behaving like others, oh, you are not normal. And
Absolutely.
at 7 or 8 years old, who registers what is normal?
True, 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 true. I remember once when I was, harassed by a couple of boys in my school, and I remember, reporting to my principal, and my principal was like, "It's your fault. You being effeminate is the reason that you're inviting, this harassment." And like, in India, we are kind of like, told that teachers are your second parent, and we think assume that that is a safe space, and it is not. And I absolutely agree that, like, one of the important fact on reducing this, though we are in the era of internet, the education do plays a huge role. Moving on to Mohammed, who is in this educational institution and continuing this conversation. Would you like to add something, and, like, please share your opinion, Mohammed?
Sure. Thank you so much. Pearl, thank you for talking about schools. I think I have a lot of experience on that. As a student myself
Mhm.
right now in my master's journey, I've realized that
Mm.
colleges, schools are not your safe spaces. I mean, they act as a buffer for being a safe space, but they definitely are not your safe spaces. Not unless if your college is very affirming and affirming to the principles of how safe spaces are meant to be, or have a queer cell that sort of helps out students. But even then, all those queer cells are ridden with apolitical people and students and people who do not want to bring caste, race, or any form of intersectionality and talk about any other issues that concern us as a queer individuals. They just want to oh, let's have a queer party. Let's do
Mhm.
potlucks. Let's recruit more queer people, but not talk about the issues that concern us. Let's not have gender neutral toilets because that is way too much for the school or college administration to handle. Let's keep
Yeah.
it low. Let's not focus on anything that is very important or integral for us. uh, I think, Shilok, when you mentioned about the harassment that you kind of faced in back in your uh, school college days and what your principal said, I think I kind of faced that in my bachelor's journey when you know uh, I use a lot of hand expressions, and there was this one instance my professor was like, "Do not do that. That is
Mhm.
not what boys do." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Why do you have problems with my hands moving so much? They are my hands."
Yeah, I think that is what is being a replica on online as well, and, like, right. So the same thing as Pearl was, and we are having this conversation on educational institution, and, like, and somewhere, like, this is being, much more prominently on internet, and I'm sure you would have also been experienced on it. And what is your experience on, kind of facing this, and what you have thought about reducing this particular gap of harassment on online?
So I think what I've understood from this conversation or this narrative is that what
Mm-hmm.
everyone is trying to do here is trying to put us in a box. They're trying to make us a part of this binary that they have formulated from generations. And
Mm-hmm.
here comes few individuals or a lot of individuals across the world who are ready to challenge this narrative, challenge this binary, and say that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe we do not fit here, maybe we do not belong here. And that is a rebellion act in itself. People are not happy with that, because once you have a set of boundaries and set of sorry, not boundaries really, set of notions, things are perceived that way. Anything beyond that is an error. I come from the field of molecular biology, and anything that is not normal is termed as a disorder or an error. And I try to see that in a different way, because when we deal with chromosomal diseases, we try to word it in a better way now. We call it chromosomal aberrations. So, by choosing a little more inclusive language, it doesn't hurt. It makes approaching certain topics more easier. As we see the same thing in intersex movement as well. So
Mm-hmm.
there's this slang or there's this derogatory word that is used
Mm-hmm.
in textbooks to describe intersex people, and it's called hermaphrodite. And
Mm-hmm.
although it's being reclaimed in India, it's not considered as a reclamation. Like, the process is still going on. Like, Western activists claim to accept that word or reclaim that word. In India, we
Mm-hmm.
see that hermaphrodite is directly linked with medical fraternity, weaponizing it against us. So this form of weaponization be overcome by inclusive language. You replace hermaphrodite with saying that there is variations in intersex people, or there is chromosomal variations or bodily variations, and trying to put in words that give us more power over our bodies. Body autonomy and self determination is what we are looking for. And I think
Yeah.
something should be applied in institutions as well as body autonomy and self determination.
Mhm.
The act of claiming our pronouns. I mean, that's a very powerful act in itself. If
True.
someone is able to get up and just tell in their class that their pronouns are so and so, that is a form of reclamation for me. It's a form of expressing your autonomy over yourself. And
Absolutely.
I think that what fails at a larger aspect is the aspect of existence itself. Like Ghazal was sharing her narrative of social media. I feel like when we expressively talk about social media and trolling and harassment, it
Mhm.
comes from this space of oh, I want to irritate your existence, I want to trigger your mental health, I want to want to spoil your very good day happening around you because I feel threatened by your existence. And I
True.
think threatened by your existence comes from this school narrative where we view certain aspects of our existence as threatening. For example,
Yes.
feminist as threatening, masculineness as threatening, and we also anything that is a fluidity of its own. If someone
Mhm.
is trying to express themselves a little more differently, is a threat in itself as well. And right now we do realize that even if you do amplify, if you do try to create ripples of wave on a educational basis,
Mhm.
I don't want to name these people, but we see that such what do you say, recommendations get rejected. Such
Absolutely.
change. Sorry.
Yeah. No, no, no. So you're saying that, like, again, like what Pearl was mentioning, it is important that the primary education is somewhere, is the root for it, like, regardless of modern technology, how we have evolved. Like, it begins from school, it begins from home, and like education is the primary aspect to sensitize these bullies, these abusers, right? So moving on, thank you so much, Muhammad. It was
Thank
one
you.
of and I'm so amazed by your scientific reasoning and kind of a language that you use. It's quite satisfying. And thank you so much. Can we move to Shruti? Shruti, I would like to hear from you now.
Pearl and Ghazal and Mohammed, of course, have been so articulate. So they have spoken about the
Mm-hmm.
overall problems. So I would
Mm-hmm.
like to speak in with the perspective of a gender-based violence activist.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go online,
Mm-hmm.
there are some specific typical problems when we talk about the online space, the cyberspace. So
Mm-hmm.
one definitely is people think because internet is available to me, I'm behind a screen, I have the
Mm-hmm.
right to say whatever I want, and I can get away with it. And the
Yeah.
unfortunate fact is they do get away with it.
Yes.
So there is active harassment, which could be doxing, that is revealing people's addresses. That there are threats about assault.
Mm-hmm.
So it can really, amplify very quickly. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
that could have started with something as small as me disagreeing with something.
Yes.
Like, oh, you like this particular kind of coffee? No, I don't like. So people think, oh, internet gives them the freedom to take it to the next level and threaten the person with just because they disagreed on with you on this really minor topic. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the sphere we are dealing with, because that's what Ghazal also spoke about, the freedom of speech. So people think
Yes.
I have unlimited, unchecked freedom here. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say whatever comes to my mind. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to think back and even reflect on whether my reaction is too much, too less, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the environment where we come in as queer persons. That's where we come in as non-binary, fluid persons who want to just live our lives.
True.
So as GBV activists, the first thing always is it's difficult to report. As a survivor, as a victim, the reporting rates are always very, very low, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's so much of re-traumatization. People telling us, oh, you're overreacting, oh, it's just a post, oh, it's just a slap, stuff like that. So they
Mm-hmm.
immediately doubt the validity of the complaint itself. They make you
Mm-hmm.
doubt your own remembrance of what has happened. So that's gaslighting. Then, as you
Mm-hmm.
also mentioned, there is victim blaming. Did you do
Yes.
something? you know. So as
Yes.
queer persons online, we always face this. Why are you being so queer, you know? Why are you being so fabulous? Can you be a little, you know, can you pass more? So they expect us to be more cis hetero passing, not be too fabulous, not be too in their face queer, so that they are
Mm-hmm.
forced to question their heterosis existence. So
True.
basically, it's like then it becomes a respectability spectrum. So as long
Mm-hmm.
as you follow these particular cis hetero rules, or upper caste rules, or whatever it is, whatever is considered the norm and considered the default and normal,
Mm-hmm.
if you follow that, we will respect you and we'll leave you alone. The moment
Yeah.
you shift even a little here or there, we are going to make it difficult for you to exist in this space. So, like Mohammed said, it's about boxing you and making
Mm-hmm.
sure that you do not develop your own sense of expression, because what they are saying is society already has quote unquote rules. Um, so, follow those rules. And if you don't follow those rules, then whatever comes to you is your fault. So, um, my suggestion on top of what Ghazal already said, the websites, the social media sites that we use, there is a responsibility by these sites to have much more stringent community safety guidelines. Also, I understand completely that I'm sure they receive millions of complaints. But instead of saying, hey, we have too many complaints, you know, it takes us time or sometimes mistake happen, please assess why your space has become a melting pot of so many complaints in the first place. Why is safety an afterthought for you? Why aren't there already inbuilt safety guidelines which make it difficult for people to post certain language, especially when it's transphobic, homophobic, or whatever? Why isn't there a check already before they post? So
True.
there is a big distance to be traveled when it comes to these safety guidelines. It's quite a task to complain, and those complaints usually don't come to anything, you know?
And also you don't want to spend so much time, and like, we everyone
Exactly.
have life, right? Like,
Exactly.
and we go through this every day, and we don't want to like keep kind of yeah, keep tracking every bully that we face, and like, probably there are so many bullies every day. So
I know.
and as you said, Shruti, it's important that, like, we are in 2022, and like technology has to evolve to an extent where they kind of identify the language when it is typed on online.
Right.
And thank you so much for sharing this. And we will move on to our next question right now. Which is, while dating applications are becoming increasingly queer inclusive, they are often breeding grounds for incidents of catfishing, extortion, stalking, and harassment. What can a queer individual do when facing an incident like this? Maybe a possible steps at an individual's level, a role of support groups and NGOs, or due diligence before meeting a person you met online, or it could be any precautionary measures that you would like to share. I would like to, check with Pearl, because, Pearl, you were mentioning about online dating before. So I would like to hear you from us. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think yes, dating apps are evolving. Like if you see the gender list that Tinder has come up with, or even Bumble, OkCupid, whether it's Grinder, which is
Mm-hmm.
only for men, there are apps. But the thing is that how much awareness is there on this apps is what needs to be like. I think as precautionary measures and as individual precautionary measures, I think the first thing you can do is definitely report it. If you find anything that is fishy, please report it. If you are meeting someone for the first time, please make sure it's in a public space and not in an isolated space. One thing about the community which and I mean it's a reality whether we accept it or not, but uh, a lot of gay men use these apps for sexual activities, and which is completely fine because it's completely out of consent. But again, this is what leads to a lot of catfishing because
True.
a lot of people when they meet someone whom they've never met,
Mm-hmm.
especially in their territory,
Mm-hmm.
it leads to a lot of harassment.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've met so many people who've had cases where the person has called them to their place, uh, invited them inside, and within like 5 minutes, there are another 3 4 men coming and bashing the person up.
Yeah. Oh,
In cases like this, it is mandatory that you report it to the cops.
yeah.
A lot of time, the community fears this because they think the cops will not listen to them.
Mm.
But definitely there are a lot of organizations you can take help of, a lot of like I used to work with Hamsafar, and I know I have gone to the police station with so many of such people.
Mm-hmm.
But also what these people are scared of is, oh, what if my family comes to know, what if
Mm.
my friends come to know, because most of them are closeted still. We Please realize we live in India where we have just been decriminalized. We have not been given any legal status, to be very honest.
True. True. Very true.
So in case of that, dating apps have to be used with utmost caution and care. To be very honest with you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. It's so though we have been confronting this very often, and we have seen, and we have been advocating. It's even to hear even now it's quite hard to digest, and we are still figuring out how to do it, right? Moving on with Mohammed, would you like to add something on this?
Hi, thank you for that. One more thing, thank you. Wait, it's so awkward with live streams, and I know like people are watching me right now. So, hi everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so dating websites. Oh my god, there's so many. I can lose count of the apps I've seen on, and I had to delete
Yeah.
them within like 5 10 minutes because they were so triggering.
It
They felt so
is.
unsafe. Like, I've heard people tell me that, oh, join this app. This app might make you feel safe, and I've done that, and I'm like, okay, maybe it does to you, but it doesn't to me. So
Yeah.
I've joined Hinge. I have joined Bumble. I have joined Tinder. I have joined Kinder. I've joined something called as Delta, which existed for a while. It doesn't anymore, I believe.
Mm.
It was fun. Delta was nice while it lasted. I mean, it felt good to be connected with only few individuals who knew about Delta. But I feel like, as Pearl, I think Pearl covered a lot of aspects of that as well. He mentioned about like how people extort, and how people, uh, catfish you into it. And I've been catfished. I've been
Mhm.
catfished. I think twice in my life, and it was a very strange situation to be, because you do not know that you are catfished until someone tells you about it, or you have this light bulb moment of like, oh my god, I got catfished. and
Yeah.
that I kind of realized that very later on, like I had got catfished by this person. And you know uh, it's interesting to see how empathetic or sympathetic we become on dating websites with certain clauses of how people describe their sufferings. So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that generally, okay, catfishing. So as Gazal pointed out, what catfishing would mean generally is that if someone, say ABC, appears in a
Mm-hmm.
certain way, or they use profile picture of someone who is XYZ, and when you meet them in person, they are not neither ABC or XYZ, but they are totally different person. And you are like appalled, you do not know what to do in that situation. Please make sure that you meet up in a public space, and you also let your friends know that you're meeting this person. You share their every freaking detail, their phone
Mm-hmm.
number. If you have Truecaller ID, just search them on Truecaller ID, and find out who they are. If they have a profile picture, search them on online, all social media platform, possibly, if they're out there. Because
True.
it's especially young queer people, they fall out to a lot of this. So like with
Mm-hmm.
experience, we can tell that, if someone says that, hey, my place is free, and I'm like, yeah, but my wallet is broke, or not today. I'm in meeting today, or it's gonna rain. Let's do arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not at your place really, but rather in a public space, or at a cafeteria. And
Mm-hmm.
also having a backup option where if some things don't go right, or if your gut tells you that something isn't right and you want to
Mm-hmm.
escape, maybe not always calling a friend might help, but having a friend around might help. So I've had a situation where I'd gone out and there was this person, and things were did not feel safe. And so I had to, use a code word, text a friend and say that, please, now is the time that you rescue me. So she comes over and she's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, Mom, you're here. And I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, would you like to grab something from the bar? And I'm like, yeah, let's go do that. And then we just got away from that space. I felt very bad for kind of ghosting that person away. But but no, it was worth it because I didn't feel safe, and I prioritized my personal safety over anything else. And I think
Mm-hmm.
everyone should prioritize their personal safety over any other feelings for any of that matter. I mean, feelings
True.
come and go. It will the person if you feel unsafe about them, you should just move out. Maybe not
Mm-hmm.
let them know that you feel unsafe around them, then that
Mm-hmm.
becomes super more unsafe. Maybe that adds the catalyst to it, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of know that you have figured out that things are not going right. Uh,
Yes.
and I think it's very important that we do our research as well of the dating websites that we want to be in. Like if someone
Mm-hmm.
says that, oh, Tinder is nice, that does not mean that Tinder is safe for you, or Bumble is nice, Bumble is not. This thing. We do have to see, we do have to look out for verification. I mean, verified profiles is a thing. Is I think one of the ways that dating websites try to avoid people being catfished. But I've experienced this personal hand that even verified profiles can lead to catfishing. So,
Oh, yes.
so do not just believe that a verified profile is really a person, a 25-year-old person named Vikram is sitting behind this thing and telling, let's meet up at McDonald's. But when you go there, neither does that McDonald's exist, neither does Vikram exist for you. So, please be aware and please do your research. Please let your friends know or a closed one know that you're going on a meetup, and if possible, take them along, and when you're sitting along, just make sure that they are nearby, or you just share your live location with someone, or let your safe spaces know. So I think this is very important now that we talk about dating apps is with, if you are associated with a safe space or an NGO, you let them know that, or you let a person from that safe space or an NGO know that you are going here and here, but internally you do not feel like things are gonna go okay. So have that backup as well. So even your therapist counts, as I believe, like you can let your therapist know as well that you're going here and with this person, and here are their details, and this is what all you should know, that I'll be here spending these many hours at this space. So I think all of these contribute to a lot of factors that we can consider as backup for safety, because you really do not know you're safe until everything has gone very smoothly, things have ended, and it's up to you whether you want to meet them again or not. So
True.
the way we built this safety criteria for ourselves is very personal, and I feel that it shouldn't be influenced by a third person or someone who has had a bad experience, because it may or may not be true for us. In our case, it may not be true, but it is a good way to let a general warning out. I always do
Mm-hmm.
that. I believe that letting a general warning out is important. Is that, listen,
Mm-hmm.
I've had a bad experience with this person, but I would not, tell you that you shouldn't meet this person. So your
Mm-hmm.
experience might be a little different, but I'm here for you. In case things don't go right with you, I'm here for you, and I'll help you out in any way possible, any capacity possible as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohammed. It was one of the really, I think, very important points that you mentioned. And to keep ourselves safe is one of the first priority that we have to prioritize. Shruti, do you like to add on this?
Yeah, as usual, like Mohammed made great points, so did
Mm-hmm.
Pearl. What I want to add is what Mohammed ended with. I usually flag accounts where I've had bad experiences. So I talk about maybe the photos the person is using
Mm-hmm.
or the names the person is using. I think that's a very powerful way of supporting each other in the queer community. So we need that
Mm-hmm.
sort of whisper network to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot about this. I personally also faced this. So please watch out if this person
Mm-hmm.
gets in touch with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I also tell whoever approaches me when it, or they ask me about dating apps, please take catfishing very seriously. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
joke. It's not funny. I think a lot of people think that, yeah, okay, whatever, haha. But it can lead to very, very serious consequences. And even if it doesn't, it's a very serious thing if the person starts a conversation with a lie, and that's also such a big lie. So
Yeah.
don't take it lightly. Catfishing is a very serious problem and it perpetuates because I think people are like, okay, I'm going to just block this person, forget about them. Please report them and then ghost them, block them, whatever you feel safe in doing. If calling out is a possibility, do that, but that's not always safe, so I wouldn't recommend it. But definitely reporting is a very, very important thing so that they, either they get deplatformed or something so that they don't repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, my personal experience has been whenever I have joined even like a queer dating app or like an all women dating app,
Mm-hmm.
there have been so many men, like I think Pearl mentioned that there have
Mm-hmm.
been so many men who pretend to be women and have long conversations with you. And then they
Mm-hmm.
send me pictures of organs that I don't want to see, you know. Um, and you're just
Sounds,
shocked.
that's
You're like,
terrible. That's
I
terrible.
know, and that happens so often, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, my advice, as we advise each other as friends every time we go out on the streets, have your wits about yourself. It's very important that please trust the patterns. Please look at the conversations and trust what that person is showing you, what they're talking about, instead of getting swept away by the romantic idea of connecting with someone. Please read what they're saying. Please assess what they're saying. Always have a questioning mindset. Also, like if suppose they mention about something about their location or profession, and if you have doubts, it always helps to ask someone, and confirm: is this what these people do? Is this what this profession involves? Even something like that, to have like a counter narrative going in your head. Don't
Mm-hmm.
constantly be in a position where you're just taking and believing what the other person is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Mohammed rightly said, share with your friends. I've also had this. I've had friends sitting on the next table, and I give them a signal, okay, this is not going well, so please help me. Because sometimes the situation can be very risky. You don't know how the other person is going to react if you suddenly end the date and move out. That's constantly a risk. So I know it's very strenuous and hard to be in situations like this where you constantly the responsibility on you,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what you have to do. Very important, please don't share sensitive information.
Mm-hmm.
If a person is forcing you to do it, that's a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, especially a person who likes you or cares about you, would force you to share something. And if they're insisting on it, that's your flag. That's your point to stop. And always notice whether they're respecting your space, your moods, whatever else. All of these are green flags for you
Mm-hmm.
on a dating app. And yeah, I would say trust your gut. Sometimes you have a bad feeling about a person.
Mm-hmm.
See why that is. Analyze it
Yes.
instead of just quickly saying, okay, maybe something, I'm going to ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, relationships are hard. They're tricky online, offline. There can be mistakes happening. But when you're online, be a little more aware, be a little more doubtful about things instead of just. I mean, I feel it's possible to be very romantic, very happy, go lucky types also, but at the same time, being very aware of what I'm getting into, who this person could be. I think you can do both.
Wow, thank you so much, Shruti. It is so important that we become so impulsive in the idea of
Mm.
dating today, and like, with a romantic relationship, and we do not consider these, safety measures. It is important to consider all these facts of informing someone, and like, considering, someone to be informed where you're going, and like, and not to
Yeah,
jump onto any private space, to
right.
meet in public space. Ghazal, I would love to hear from you. Um,
So, to be honest, Shruti, Pearl, and Mohammed have really covered
mm,
a lot of it, most of it.
mhm, mhm,
Um, I'll just maybe share a couple of, or maybe just one instance.
mhm,
So, I'm from, my hometown is Patiala in
mhm,
Punjab. And I know this, like 19-year-old trans girl there. Um, she comes from a really underprivileged, financial background. So
mhm,
she works at a tea stall. So she, goes around to offices giving out teas in the evenings, and um, barely earns anything. But her only sort of space, I mean, she gets harassed and abused all the time on a day-to-day basis, but she was able to connect with somebody online, for,
mhm,
she was chatting with them for, and they said that, you know what, they're from another city, Ludhiana. They said,
mhm,
why don't you come here to meet me? And this 19-year-old girl who has no sort of, she has no family support.
mhm,
She lives by
mhm,
herself in a small room. um, Craves love, craves affection.
mhm.
This is her hope. This seems like a space she could get that love. She
Yes.
takes a bus, goes all the way to Ludhiana, where she meets this guy who basically, spends a minute with her, takes her phone away, takes all the money she has, and just runs away. That's all he intended to do. He was just having some fun at her expense, and then stole her stuff and ran away. Um, so I actually just want to come at it from a slightly, like, um, angle of desperation. This desperation for love that a lot of queer people, most queer people, go through, because it's just been, we're judged so much for the kind of love and affection that we want, because people don't seem to understand it. So because
Mm,
we've always been judged for this need for love and romance, that
mhm.
any um, any opportunity we see, we almost like tend to jump at it. um, it's the most instinctive thing that, mujhe, like, for once in my life there is this person who might give me, who might genuinely care for me. It's so
Yes.
rare, and especially, it especially tends to happen with particularly, like, really young people I've seen. um, I just want to give out this message that, you know wait it out. Your safety is more important than, um, this immediate sort of fulfillment of your need for love. That love will come, as long as you're safe and you're alive and you're taking care of yourself. You will find that person along the way. Hopefully you will. But
True.
the primary thing is your safety. So just bear that in your mind before
Okay.
taking any sort of, spontaneous decisions. If I were to speak of dating apps personally, with my personal experience, I mean, I would say it's not been unsafe as much as it's just been disappointing as a trans woman, because you get unmatched and blocked as soon as you share that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm nuts.
It's also like, a lot of, this girl, trans girls ask me, and like, Shilok, is it so important that we tell our identity at the first? And I'm like, I don't know, because sometimes you have to. Sometimes it is not necessarily needed because you are not planning on being on relationship with this person. Like, it's again like what I'm trying to say is like, the as we
It's
were talking
something.
about, yeah, yeah, yes,
It's
please,
something I struggle with till
yeah.
now. Like there are times when I put it out there on my
Mm.
profile, there are times when I take it off. I
Yes.
genuinely don't know what is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because if you put it out there, if you put it in your profile, then it's like you're attracting men
Mm.
who are interested in a lot of men who are interested in you because you're trans. So it's an adventure for them. It's something
Yes.
different. And if you're
Yes.
not putting it out there, then you're setting yourself up for heartbreak for whenever you tell them along the way.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I mean, I just keep switching between both options. I don't know
It
what's the
is,
right
it
thing to do.
is, it is indeed very disappointing. And extortion is also one of the important factors you mentioned.
Yes.
And a lot of queer people do face extortion, and they are clueless what to do, and it is very scary as well. And considering everyone's
You
point
know,
of this,
I
yeah,
here
yes, yes, cousin.
I'm so sorry, Shilok. I keep
No, no problem.
interrupting you.
No problem. Yes, please.
I just wanted to say that, I don't think there are systems in place where, say, if a closeted queer person has faced something like this, catfishing or extortion, then there's nothing they can do because there is that risk of being outed. So if we
Mm,
could really, do advocacy to create a system with our police forces that, a person would not be outed even if they came and reported it,
true, true,
because I think if that kind of system could be created, that
true.
would discourage this kind of criminal activity a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A very good example of catfishing actually was there in this recent Hindi film called Badhai Do.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's not watched it, it's definitely a worth watching film. um, and in that, she, the girl who's catfished is lucky enough to find this policeman who's understanding and who's isn't going to out her even though she's closeted. But that's not the case. Usually
Mm,
people would just jump at you, blaming you.
true,
So I think
true,
that's the kind of advocacy that we really need, we should work towards.
true, true. Thank you.
Shilok, I would like
Yes.
to add something to what Ghazal just mentioned,
Yeah, same.
especially, yeah, with the police. Um,
Okay.
the truth is, and I want to point out the word that she used, which is lucky. You know,
Mm-hmm.
with the police, that's the case. You need to get lucky to find a
Mm,
person who will empathize with you, will not harm you, will not re-traumatize you. So this is the reality in India, in Asia, and honestly, most parts of the world. When it
mm-hmm.
comes to queer persons, when it comes to sex workers, when it comes to any person who is not following the binary set of norms or rules.
Yes.
So I completely agree with Ghazal. There needs to be advocacy so that we are able to report. But also, what we need parallelly is the police needs to understand, because we're talking about online
Mm,
harassment.
mm,
Honestly, they don't know the first thing about these sites or these apps. They don't know. I remember once accompanying a person who was talking about um, fake accounts of hers being made on Facebook, and
mm-hmm.
honestly, the policeman had no clue what we were talking about. They had no idea if that's possible. What does it look like? They were like, "अच्छा ये तो तुम्हारा ही photo है, तुमने ही बनाया है क्या?" Stuff like that. So they don't even know how these sites function. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that's quite a deeper advocacy to make. They are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to report, accept reports, how whether they understand it or not, and that's part of their responsibility. But the advocacy should include this part of awareness as well.
Mm,
That these are the risks we face, these are the limitations we have, because they are likely to say, "ठीक है, madam, we will write your FIR or whatever else," but we
mm-hmm.
honestly don't know what to do next. How do we
Yeah.
stop? What do we do?
Yeah.
Like especially when we are talking about persons' privacy being violated, their images being circulated. How do you? That's a very serious crime, and how do you, it's quite a struggle to find a person who will empathize with you and understand how severe and serious that is, because
Mm,
then you'll again be asked, why did you take that picture? Why did you send it to
true,
this person? Stuff
true.
like that. So, yeah,
It
advocacy and awareness both
The
really need to happen.
sensitization in all institutional
Yeah,
places is very important, as you said,
yeah,
and dating app is very tricky, especially for a queer person,
yeah,
and it is so true. And as you all said, it is like not to be impulsive. Just like just make sure like you put yourself, your safety is much more important than, as Gazal was mentioning, the feeling of feeling the love or like the companionship that you want to search. If you are unsafe, how are you going to find a companionship, right? And thank you so much for such an insightful
Just
yeah, yes,
sorry,
but
sir. I just want to add to this. See, the thing is, we
okay,
can
keep it
give
short.
as many. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
very short.
yes.
See, the thing is, we can keep as many pointers as we can, and we do that. But
Mm-hmm.
when a person, and I think we all have phases, whether we are
Mm-hmm.
from the city or from a smaller town, when you are understanding yourself, the first thing that we all have felt is that we are alone, and the
Truly, yeah.
reason why we go to these apps, we go online, is to find someone whom we can relate to, whom we can
Yes,
just connect to, who can say that yes, I am queer as well.
yes,
And that's something you can't take away from anyone.
yeah.
That's, it's just that feeling that people are trying to uh, feel that they are not alone in this community.
To feel
They're not.
safe to be who you are online is
Huh.
so
yeah,
important, where this technology is not providing the right thing.
yeah.
And how do we do that is a question. Thank you so much, Will. It is right indeed a important point. And I'm going to jump on the third question, directing to Ghazal, starting with this question because it's all about OTT platforms. So
Oh,
late, lately, the role of media in developing a queer positive environment. A queer positive environment has been tremendous with OTT platforms and social media taking the center stage on this. So, what do you think are the effects of this, and what further can be done? So it could be OTT's recent queer content and regional content on queer inclusivity, or social media movements or Pride Month celebration, both online and offline. Yes, Kazan.
yeah. See, OTT platforms have brought a wave of queer stories,
Mm-hmm.
I think, which is so refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Suddenly, there's so much visibility, at least in
Mm-hmm.
the um, homes and screens of people who have access to
Mm-hmm.
OTT media, which I believe a lot of people do today, even in smaller cities. At least, if something, because there are some platforms which are way more expensive, but there are the ones which have a lot of free content, and or they don't charge that much.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a visibility of LGBTQ plus stories that is new. It's something that you could not have imagined, say, 3 years back, when OTT was not such a big presence in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why when I wrote एक लड़की को देखा तो ऐसा लगा, it was like, we were constantly second guessing ourselves at every step. It felt like we were walking on eggshells. We wanted to ensure that this film gets passed by the censor board, not as an adult film, but as a UA film, which is like everybody can watch it. And to ensure that we wanted to keep it all very vanilla. We thought we won't even have a kiss between the two girls. I know, like, all of those were disappointing things for the queer community when they watched the film, but we wanted to at least have the story out there in a mainstream format, which had
Mm-hmm.
never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
um, and this was 3 years back, just 3 years back, when creating a film like that was a challenge. It was extremely brave for a producer to have produced that film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the OTT platform has made it platforms have made it far easier today.
Mm.
Uh, and again, to be honest, at the end of the day, it's still business for people, for platforms,
True.
also it's business. OTT platforms need so much content today because there is there are so many platforms, there are
Mm.
so many shows being created that they
Mm.
need unique stories to be able to grab the viewer's attention, because
Mm.
otherwise their stories will just get lost. So
Mm.
it makes a good business sense for them to tell new stories, unusual stories, and we just happen to fit nicely into that uh, bracket. So that's also one of the reasons that queer stories are, for lack of a better word, in demand right now.
Yeah.
Uh, However, I will say that it's still OTT.
Yes.
Our theatrical films still have a long way to go, and
Yes.
it's only looking harder now. If I'm being honest, it's only looking harder now because anyway, all the small films are coming to OTT only.
Mm. Mm.
Um, the theaters are seeing only the big, like event films going
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And most of the event film producers don't take risks. So, I mean, I'm basically an optimist, so I'm pretty sure that you will see stuff changing even there. I've not
True.
seen RRR, but I'm told RRR is like almost gay soft porn, which is which is I mean, I'm probably going to watch it this evening actually.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'll let you know.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And it is a very important point that you made that, like, it is OTT. When you said it is OTT, of course, it's something like, a person who can just watch privately or with a group of friends. It's not like a group
Yeah,
event where everyone
yeah,
goes and watch this, have this group experience. And again,
yeah.
like, it kind of constrains the politics of space again. Thank you so much for mentioning that, Ghazal. Moving on, Shruti, I wanted to hear from you now.
Again, great
Hmm.
points, Ghazal. Obviously, she's an insider and knows so much better.
I know.
Um, um, uh, I'm just thinking that, we always talk about popular culture and how it influences us, but it's also
Mhm.
cyclical. So, popular culture can show us things which makes us accept them more. But
Mm.
like Ghazal said, we can also
Mm.
dictate the demand. So let's demand better, because
Mm.
queer representation, especially at the OTT level, has been so great. It's such a refreshing, such a positive step.
Mhm.
But let's also demand that, let it not be cis people playing queer people and trans people. Um, let's also demand that, queer folks and trans folks, persons with intersex variations, all of them are also considered as creative folks who can get an opportunity in this reckoning of period,
Mhm.
because that will make it better representation, to put it very simply. Like
Mhm.
that will change the gaze of the storytelling. It will
Yes.
change what aspects of our lives come into play. It's not
Mm.
cis hetero people looking at us, it's us introspecting, it's us talking about our communities, and that is going to be a dramatically different, um, more soulful storytelling. I
Mhm.
understand risks. I completely get it. Ultimately, it's a okay, let's cater to the market sort of experience. So let our advocacy also change the market demands. Let's say, hey, this is a great movie, but it will be so much better if it's not a cis man sort of
Yeah.
cross dressing as a trans woman,
So
but a
true.
trans person playing the role, showing their reality, getting an opportunity, uh, making a strong, amazing point about visibility.
Yeah.
That's more respectful, more impactful representation. So I'm
True.
hoping the next step, I'm adding to the hope that Ghazal is putting out in the universe,
Mm.
that the next step to this is this, like
Mm.
more of
Yes.
us queer people come
Mm.
in and become box office gold,
Mm.
considered creators who
True.
will be hired.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Even like, in regional cinemas where I come from, it is so disturbing to watch when they, have any queer representation, but where it is not acted by a queer person. And even as a child, when I was growing up, it was so disturbing to watch. And and like over the period when I was transitioning, and it was really too triggering for me to watch this, and I was like being so conscious of my transition somehow. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is not what exactly I am picturing. And it is also a largely which has been shown, and you're also sitting with your family and everyone are watching, and it is so
Yeah.
disturbing. It is
Yeah,
so
and it
disturbing.
perpetuates the existing transphobic
Hmm.
idea that trans persons are basically persons of the other gender, just like dressing up as they. So some it just playing to that very basic idea,
Hmm.
and sort of masquerading as positive
Hmm.
representation. I
Yes.
see positives there, but I also see a lot of uh, very very important there, because it's not just how the film looks bad or the actor acts bad. It's about
Yeah.
what effects it has on the street for a trans person, how they feel about themselves, how they are looked at, you know
Mm-hmm.
so it's an important factor. And really, I mean, a role of a trans person played by a trans person, written by a trans person, is going to be a
Yes.
very very different film.
Absolutely.
Absolutely no doubt about it.
True. True.
It's them looking at their own lives, at their own reality, not us judging. And so there is place for allyship, of course, but it's also about making space for queer persons, not just saying,
True.
oh, okay, okay, we'll play queer people and be happy with it, stuff like that.
True.
So
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you so much. Jumping on to Pearl, would you like to add something?
No, I think Ghazal and Shruti have actually covered it up a lot. See, the thing is that, like, I think while growing up, at least for me, there were no
Hmm.
references for queer characters. Like,
Hmm.
the only references that we would see are negative references. Like
Hmm.
whether it was Rakhi playing a trans woman in Masti, or Isha Kopikar playing girlfriend. So like for
Hmm.
and like I still remember that. I was just surfing the TV, and that movie was playing on the TV, and my mother would just came into the room and saw me watching that movie called Girlfriend, and said that, oh, this is not good, it brings bad women, and I didn't even understand what it was. So that's the impact that media and cinema have on us. Like, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, but apart from cricket and religion, people just follow uh, movies blindly.
True.
So and
Absolutely.
that's why it is so important to have queer representation in cinemas, and not only
Yes.
just as actors, but like Ghazal is doing an amazing job at writing these characters as well, right? Because
Yeah.
it takes the community for them to know the community.
Hmm. True, true. And also when you say inclusivity, and like when you're also having a non-queer person acting a queer role, how sensitive are they about this
Yes,
queer identity? How much they do know? And like after the show, whether it is a OTT cinema or like the any mainstream theatrical cinema, they come out and say that yeah, I did play this gay role, but I am not gay. They don't do that with
exactly.
other characters. And and like really how sensitive are you? And and it is also a question.
and how they
Mohammed,
are praised for being bold. They're praised
yes,
for
Exactly.
being bold for playing that
yes.
I think
role.
like there was a phase in OTT where like the only way to show queer roles were if you are kissing the same gender character, but that's not how queer relationships are shown, right? Like like
True.
like uh, I think Badaito is a great reference for that. Like
Yeah.
even there are so many OTT shows. I mean, right now I think OTT is really progressing, but it can be shown with subtlety. It can be shown without the whole uh, without your identity being the center of everything.
Yes. 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 True.
You are a person, and your identity is a part of that person.
True. True. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Mohammed, I would like to move on with you. Muhammad, are you with us?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to scroll and do things. Technology. It's
Okay.
sluggy here.
Yes.
Okay, so media OTT, I believe I think everyone else has covered good
Mm-hmm.
enough points or
Mm-hmm.
share of their part to, just for me to, brief this down to certain aspects of it. What I would love
Mm-hmm.
more OTT platforms or, people in, uh, you know, positions of power could do more on is representation, is fat representation. I think positive fat representation is very important. Showing fat people can live not healthy but happy is very
Mm-hmm.
important. Reclaiming our bodies and body autonomy is a very important integral part of the queer movement in India. But when you forecast or show fat people as sad beings, or people who cannot achieve anything, or people who cannot run, like we have seen this portrayal, right? Like fat people cannot run, they cannot run faster. Like, why are you making us run marathons? We don't need any of that. Like, I think I remember watching this movie called what was that movie? Student of the Year. So there is this character, there's a fat character in it who has to run for a marathon, and they show that the only possible achievement that he's achieved of running is just trying to do this is the achievement that he's achieved by just trying to do this, and that's the running that he's achieved, or the character has achieved. And I think another form of representation that I would love to see is neurodivergence being, and neurodivergent people being represented, like neurodivergent people acting in or taking active part. I do not want to see a neurotypical person trying to act up and trying to show that, oh, this is how autism looks like, or this is how ADHD looks like,
And
or this
also,
is
like,
how.
not make us sound like extraordinary godlike people. Like,
Absolutely that.
True.
And
Thank you, Shruti. Yeah.
yeah, it's like that forcible excellence of the whole representation.
Or the
Mm.
and
extremism of representation.
Yeah,
Yes.
the harmful notion of how ADHD people hyper
yeah,
focus, or
right.
how they just exist within their spaces. It is so harmful, like the way they try to portray that in OTT platforms or in media generally. Like,
Mm.
this is how it is. So
Mm.
when you label that this is how it is, it becomes like a hallmark for people.
Mm.
So this is
Mm.
how people expect, like non-binary people, sorry, or or people with autism, or people with ADHD, like this is the hallmark. This is how they are supposed to act like it. And then again, we are setting binaries here. We are putting a box
Yeah.
over,
Yeah,
neurodivergent people, and saying that, okay, this is how all neurodivergent people. This is how they act. This is how they behave. They are
yeah.
rude. They are condescending. They dissociate away from you easily. So all of that is very, very harming for someone who is in their exploratory or questioning phase. I think, Shruti, I remember this article that you had written about coming out as a process of outgrowing yourself, and I
Yeah.
resonate this word outgrowing till date. So anytime people talk about coming out, I'm like, no, I don't call it coming out. I call it outgrowing, because my
Oh,
friend
so sweet.
Shruti made it so beautifully, like explained it so beautifully. So if someone is in their outgrowing phase right now, and they see all these harmful notions of how media represents neurodivergence or fat positivity, they just start hitting themselves, and that leads to a numerous lot of issues down the road. There's not just a single path that diverges from it. A lot of other paths that lead to the all the other things that we have spoken today. Another representation that I would want to see is disabled representation. Most importantly, disabled characters played by disabled people. We are not
Mm.
letting someone with cerebral palsy played by somebody who does not have cerebral palsy. Then you are just understanding, okay, these are the struggles, but you are not getting to sort of step into the shoes of the harassment and sort of ableism, or internalized ableism that person has to face every day, from accessing spaces to accessing services, basic human rights services that anyone gets to gets to access, and not
Mm.
getting to do that. And I feel like a person who is not disabled cannot or does not have is not disabled cannot get that sort of accessibility. It's like they do not face that any of that, and when you do not face that, the privilege or the understanding, the audacity of that person to think that life is so easier this way, is like only all you have to do is ask, and it just
Yeah.
limits down to that notion is that people are not asking. That's why the agencies in place are not responding to them in crises.
So true. So true. I
And
completely. Yeah. Yes, Shruti.
sorry, sorry,
No, no, no,
sorry.
no. Please do.
Something or the
Please.
other is popping up in my head. I think we
Yes.
forget that representation is also about opportunity. That is also
Yes.
representation. It's not just our
Thank
face
you.
or
Yeah.
somebody looking like us out there. That's good, that's great, powerful, but that's just the start. And
Mm-hmm.
also, when Mohammed was saying about fat representation, about so called non typical bodies, non thin bodies being shown, uh,
Mm-hmm.
listen. um, I am a fat person. I'm not thinking about fatness 24/7.
Mm.
That's
True.
not my identity. But when
Mm.
I see a representation of that, often it's like that person is like walking around with like neon signs FAT behind them. Like that's what they are. That's what they're talking about. That's what they affects them. That's their perspective. But that's not reality.
Yes.
It just shows that you are looking at me from a lens where you have placed fatness at the center. And
Yes.
that's why
Yes.
you're assuming that's what is at my life center. But that's not
Yes.
true.
And yeah, I mean, thank you for mentioning that. It is also like, you cannot center someone's identity as the whole story. They are much more beyond
Yeah,
that, right? They
yeah,
are like,
yeah,
we are much more than our gender identity or sexuality or any other
yeah,
things. And how do you bring this? And I always tell this to people whenever people come and tell me, like, I understand, you cannot understand if you, other than if you are trans, only then you can understand the trans identity, or like, you cannot empathize unless you go through this. So it is impossible for someone else to empathize the character and do it, as Mohammed was mentioning about the with disabled community and so on. So thank you for amazing, insightful answers by everyone. I just loved
I,
every.
if I
Yes,
may, if I may just add one little thing, and
sure.
uh, please feel free to disagree or discuss this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm totally on board with this. The representation
Mm-hmm.
is extremely important. Opportunity is extremely important. Uh, but I also think that it has to go hand in hand with appreciation for the efforts that are being made. Uh, there has to be engagement with the people who are, given they're probably not queer, but if they're allies and they're making efforts to create something which is progressive and maybe helpful, I think it's important to engage with them and tell them that this is good, we appreciate this, and this is what we would hope for the future. um, when Chandigarh Kare Ashiki came out, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the comments from the queer community were centered on the cis het actor playing the trans character. Um, that particular point, I totally agree with. That it would have been perfect if it was played by a trans woman. Having said that, you cannot take away from the fact that the film made some good points. It was a progressive film. It moved me. I actually broke down while watching the film, even though the actor was not a trans woman
Mm-hmm.
herself. I thought she tried her best to do justice to the role. Um, I also made a short film called A Monsoon Date. This was about 4 years back. It was, and the trans woman is actually played by Konkona Sen Sharma in that film. Um, Unfortunately, I know I'm again going to sound like a business person since I'm from the industry, but
Mm-hmm.
business does come into play in such situations. I mean, I would not have been able to get that film made, the short film, if we didn't have an actress like Konkona. We would
Mm-hmm.
not have got a producer. We would not have got that money to be able to tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got her, we got the money, and we were able to tell at least this story which said something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a really tricky, fine balance that we have to tread.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all I want to say is that, let's not be completely antagonistic towards people, towards allies who are making efforts. Uh, because those are people on our side. So
True.
let's engage with them. Let's train them, maybe. Let's make them better.
Thank you, Gazal. Thank you for mentioning. It is important to consider that aspect as well, and I completely agree on that particular point, because I also work in a media industry, and I do understand how does business works, and how does the branding works, and the points that you mentioned is completely, it is so important, and I agree each and every point that you made. And also, while we were discussing, it was also about like, the only time that it's okay when an ally do the role, but then, like, they come out of it and they reject the identity, or like,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
that is quite
not,
disturbing. Yeah. And it is also like, probably if the person, whoever is doing the role, just do your research and get educated and be as sensitive as you can, as sensitive. So
absolutely.
that is very important. Thank you so much, and we are going to move to another question, because this particular question can be a separate panel. Probably in future we all can get together and discuss
Yeah.
this. So the next following up, the next question is: with respect to media, a point of content has been cross-dressing, and how it is portrayed through comical references. How does this portrayal in mainstream media affect a queer individual, whether closeted or proudly open? Um, Mohammed, would you like to take this question first?
Uh, Actually, the voice was cutting down a bit, and I
Oh,
lost moment of it.
okay.
Can someone else take it up, and then I'll
Yes.
rather.
Shruti, would you like to take it up?
Yeah, sure. So I really appreciate Ghazal's point also, that she made earlier.
Mhm.
Uh, okay. I have to sometimes reconcile a lot of mixed feelings together,
No, okay.
because yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
advocacy is hard, as you know. It's like, and I think we are great people as a community. We really appreciate efforts. We really put in so much mental labor to raise
Mm.
awareness, to bring in allies, to educate. Even though at the heart of it, it's not on us. You know, we are allowed to not make that put in that mental labor because we are
Mhm.
existing, we are fighting for ourselves. But every queer person who does it, I really, really admire them because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of sharing of your own stories, your own trauma, helping someone navigate their allyship. That's a lot of work. So, of course, the point always is that great if the steps are being made, but hopefully the next steps are, more like
Mm. Mm. Mhm.
representation, which, helps change things also.
Yeah.
So let's hope that's what's coming.
Mm.
Cross-dressing, as I mentioned even before, I think it does a great level of not cross-dressing what you're doing. That's if it's your thing with consent, whatever. Not I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it being used as a thing of a joke.
Yes.
For me, that is exceptionally problematic comedy. Honestly, I don't even find it funny, so I won't even call it comedy.
Mhm.
And I think it's a cheap shot to take. It really
Mhm.
reinforces that binary idea. Then it risks the, I think it opens up the thing that okay, now everybody's free to make fun of people. So effeminate men, butch women, so everybody who's not falling into those boxes that we spoke about, they're just like fair game when it comes to making fun of them. And I think, yeah, I just hope it will go away. I'm just so sick of it. I see it constantly as part of comedy shows, reality shows, contests, all of that. It continues to be such a common trope in so many films, and even like modern, like recent films. That trope has not gone away. So it just I'm a big believer that comedy can be intelligent, it can be respectful, it can be intersectional, it can be positive. I do feel comedy is very powerful. But when you see this as being the common narrative of comedy, then it just feels very disheartening. And the thing is, again, people take it lightly. People
Yeah.
think, oh, it's just a joke. Don't
Mm.
you know but the thing is, it affects people really in real life. It deeply traumatizes them. It leads to a lot of bullying, which we spoke about. This is the
True.
kind of bullying that happens in schools. The way we dress, the way we present ourselves, the way we talk, all of it is rooted in this kind of so-called comedy. So I
Mm.
find it very, very problematic. I think the moment we lose the perspective that what we are doing actually has real life impact, um, that's where the danger is. So this
Yeah.
comedy does pose that danger. And I said, I think a lot of comedians, a lot of other popular culture figures, they have a lot of power. So if they can push back against it and set a different standard, it's possible that things will change. And also for them to respond to what we are demanding as a community, saying that please don't put this out again and again, and reinforce these ideas because that
Yes.
hurts us and harms us.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Pearl, would you like to comment on this?
Uh, yeah, actually, I mean, to start it off with, first, I just genuinely want to thank Gazal for a monsoon day, because I don't know if many people have seen it or not, but I think it's one of the best trans films that I have seen, and I genuinely want to say that to you, Gazal.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for that movie.
Thanks,
Uh,
Paul.
Also, I feel what people don't understand is, like, see, I think the society and especially media are used to seeing things in a very black and white perspective, so they
Mm.
don't understand that there's a spectrum for everything,
Mm.
whether it's uh, showing a lesbian as always a butch woman, because they are femmes as well, or if
Yes.
there is someone who's cross-dressing, it will always be a man who's cross-dressing as a woman.
True. Very true. Yes.
But there are so many drag kings, right, who
Yes.
cross-dress for performance basis as well.
Yes.
So it's just the lack of awareness and the uh, like, I think it's also a lot of what do you call it, I think maybe laziness for people to actually research about these things, which leads to these kind of stigmas.
Mm. And
But
also
before that,
exaggerating femininity somehow, and like showing the femininity is something vulnerable, or like it's a joke, and somehow
it's
like
also
yeah.
degrading femininity, right? Because
Yes. Yeah.
when a man cross dresses, they feel that, oh, you are degrading because you are going lower than what you are supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And also showing cross dressers often as villains in the movies, that's also
Oh.
so problematic.
Mm.
Because, like, oh, because they cannot have their masculinity is what makes them bad. So I think
Yeah.
it's just lack of representation, lack of knowledge what people have. Like, how many trans men characters have we seen in media?
Yeah.
And
True.
I know this is going to happen with non-binary and gender non-conforming folks as well,
Yes.
because still till now the media has not registered that there's some characters called as non-binary or gender non-conforming. But I'm sure they're going to be made fun of as well, because
Mm.
these are new topics for the especially for the society and especially for media. So how
Yeah.
do we use it? And the best way to use it is in a comical way.
Mm.
But what people don't realizing is making fun of characteristics is not really comedy.
Yes. Uh, Thank you, Pearl. Thank you. Thank you. Ghazal, would you like to add something?
Um, First, I just want to check, like, there's no noise around in my. You can't hear any noise, right?
No,
That's
no,
why I kept it on mute because there is some construction work going on here.
no. That's fine. Yeah.
Um, Extremely problematic cross-dressing, and like Pearl said earlier, it's largely only you see cis men
Hmm.
cross-dressing as women, and
Hmm.
it's just playing into the whole patriarchal setup that oh, and all sorts of jokes would be around the man somehow having breasts or what's down there of the man. Um, the jokes are just created around, you know, pretty much the anatomy
Yeah.
of a woman, right? And it just plays into sexism. It's completely that. Um, and also pretty much what Shruti and Pearl were saying. This is not great comedy. It's not intelligent. It's the most
Yes.
base form of comedy. Matlab, come on, guys, work hard. If you're genuinely comedians and if you're talented, please just pull up your socks and give us better jokes, man. Just work hard. You're just picking up the what you think is the easiest form of comedy, which will get you laughs from the masses, and that's that. Your work is done. No, if you want to prove your talent to me, you better write better jokes, and like jokes which are not demeaning to people, jokes which are intelligent, which can actually um, change mindsets. Comedy is capable of doing that. It's extremely unfortunate that the most popular comedy show in which every Indian household watches, that
Hmm.
Kapil Sharma show, the entire comedy is around people cross dressing, and masses just love that show, and all of our film producers, like all the films for their promotions, go to uh,
Yeah.
that so there is some responsibility that all of us have, that all these superstars have, of ensuring that that's not the kind of comedy that they are connecting themselves with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go on to that show, Gazal? Were you ever called
No,
to
I
that?
didn't. But एक लड़की को देखा, director
Yeah.
and actors went.
Ah,
They
Mm.
did.
It is just not only that, like, even in regional reality shows, there are so many reality shows which do have this
yeah.
comical characters, and it is so disturbing sometimes when I'm like, and my parents are sitting right there and enjoying this. And for me,
Yeah, yeah,
someone
yeah.
who has been through gender dysphoria, and like, and it is such a struggle even to sit there with them, and like, I can't even ask them to stop watching it. What should I do? And even as a child, while growing up to watch this, it is so horrifying. It is a nightmare, right? And
Yes.
it does affect psychologically so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Ghazal. Thank you. And that was a very savage answer. Like, you need to really, if you're talented, you need to use your skills. Don't make it so easier. And thank you. Thank you for that savage answer. Mohammad, I would like to hear from you, and then we can jump on to a final question.
All right. I was thinking a lot and was thinking how to frame this properly. And I think that what I've understood is that our conversations here is lacking. I mean, these media companies or platforms and all of this conversation that lacks is some sort of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And the important part of the strange, funny, weird part of accountability is that it is commonly associated with cancel culture. And it's very important that we, separate the two and work on it. And when we
Mm-hmm.
ask for accountability, it's not the same as teenagers on social media. And I specifically use the word teenagers is because it is a very Gen Z thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Cancel
Mm-hmm.
culture is a very Generation Z, Generation X thing to do than a millennial thing to do. And I think I was a part of this cancel culture for a while too. I've cancelled a lot of people and I've realized it is very harmful. And what cancel culture basically leads is to a lot of gatekeeping and gaslighting.
Yes.
So when we specifically refer to the cross-dresser community, we see that they are being gate-kept. Again, being
Mm.
gate-kept by whom? They're being gate-kept by people who are into the movements of queer movements. They are organizers, they're event organizers, they are safe space administrators, safe space coordinators. As a safe space coordinator and an administrator, I've realized that we have gate kept a lot of people who wanted to express differently without even actually realizing it. Why? Because they probably did not speak proper English, or their English seemed a little different than us.
Mhm.
Hindi was more stronger, or any other regional language was more stronger than the other English, and English not being as their first language was
Mhm.
enough reasons for us to to gatekeep them. And we realize that that is so harmful until it happens to us. Until
Mhm.
it happens to you, that you realize that it is very harmful, and then you
Yes.
start saying that, oh, where is the accountability for this space? All that while remembering that, okay, you were also a part of this system, you also did this to someone, and
True.
maybe they were not able to ask for accountability the same way, and maybe that impacted them a lot, personally as well. And it is something that I say that that is that accountability that we look out for, that we should keep ourselves in check, whether or not this is something that is violating your principles, your ethics, your beliefs as a queer person, and what are you really standing up for. And
Yeah.
as much as I believe, like, the cross-dresser community is so widely misunderstood and so widely fetishized,
Mhm.
that and they're also violated in terms of queer safe spaces, or queer spaces, or dating apps, saying that common notions that we see is that, oh, no fat people, no cross-dressers, no femmes, no trans people. And this is done by, sometimes it is done by people, and how do you call them out without canceling them, or how do you call them out or ask them to be accountable for their actions, in the guise of them using it as, oh, these are just preferences.
Mm.
Yeah.
That is a very tricky line to walk through, because they
Yeah.
hide all of these biases and phobias and hatred under the notion of preferences, and they get away with it. And people don't seem
Yes.
to question that, because we as queer people, we have this selective hatred or selective objection towards only certain matters. We are very biased through for certain things, and for certain things we turn ignorant. We are like, okay, it does not impact us on a personal level, we're not gonna
Mm.
talk about it. We're not
True.
gonna hold ourselves accountable to the sufferings of others, because who really cares what's happening in Ukraine right now? Who really
Yeah.
cares what is happening on the front lines of Russia right now? Because that is very far. It's not never gonna impact me. So I'm not gonna talk about the sufferings of others. I'm just gonna focus on what is concerning to me right now. I'm gonna be grounded to that. And I believe that that sort of attitude is okay, as long as you're trying to build a safe space around you and trying to keep a backup of safety. But eventually there will be a day when it comes and haunts you, and there will be a day when it'll come and question your morals and ethics and your position on matters that has to do with your backyard. So how are you going to navigate through that spaces? I have realized that online safety is a space of privilege.
Mhm.
Hiding, not hiding really, but protecting yourselves with a picture that does not show up your profile on Instagram or Facebook, or keeping a private profile. But what happens when you are when you're in a space that is not online? When if someone recognizes you from your Instagram profile or Facebook profile that you do not know, that is the most scary part of having a private profile with multiple requests every day. Is that even if you accept them, thinking that they have a lot of mutual followers, what about that safety when they are not a really safe person to be around you?
Yeah.
And I think that is why a lot of people who are in their exploratory or questioning phase do not make their actual profiles, or do not have their real pictures out there. They might use a different name to express themselves, and I think we should let them do that. I think we should accept that this is their way of questioning or exploring themselves, and we should allow that to flourish. But unfortunately we do not do that. We get very
Yeah. Yeah.
paranoid, and we get okay, it's okay to be get sort of have that fear that maybe that this person is linked with catfishing and so forth. But we also should not brand every person as the same thing. Maybe one
Yeah, so
experience that
this cross dressing is like, is also seen as some phobia. Like, I've also witnessed with some of the gay artists, like, do not allow trans community or the cross dresses. It's a whole different conversation. Again, like, we're just like, again, like the other aspect of it, like, where people, the straight hetero people, using as a comical reference to make a joke of it is also very disturbing somehow. And yes, there is different stories and different aspects. Sorry to cut you off, Mohammed, and we will jump on a last question. We have a time constraint, and we're already crossed our time limit. But then, like, I'm just going to open this question to everyone. I hope Pearl will join us shortly. So anyone, please feel free to answer, take an initiative to answer this question. So we all have seen a change in corporate environment in the last 10 years, both pre and post discrimination of Section 377. However, there still exist gaps, in corporates being gender inclusive in the true sense and not for a marketing strategy. So, how do you feel we can bring such change, and what are existing challenges that still need to be addressed? And gender inclusive policies in predominantly heterosexual work environments, things a working professional must know. Anyone? I'm going to just keep this question open. Whoever feels like. Ghazal, you're on mute.
I said I have the least interaction with corporates among this. Someone else take it.
Shruti, would you like to? Because I know you write about this. You also did work on DNI.
Yeah, yeah. So
As well. Yeah.
every time I've taken training sessions,
Mm.
um, I have been surprised at how basic they want the training to be. They're like,
Mhm.
okay, can we start with definitions? So can you define sexism? Can you
Mm.
define misogyny? I'm like, but like Ghazal said, like there is the frustration of
Mhm.
working with grown-up professionals who probably have planned whole vacations online and them expecting a tuition on very basic Googleable things. But then also, how do we appreciate or acknowledge the effort at learning and hopefully looking at it as a channel of change? So I try to do that. For me, training is a way of questioning myself also. It sort of coincides with what Mohammed very eloquently said about accountability, about bringing people in. If I'm sitting on the fringes and constantly pointing out this and that, is there a solution in sight? Or do we build bridges and do we build channels where there is interaction? It's not about distributing cookies, for minimal effort. It's about hey, great, you started on this. Please work on this, read this, do this, make this change. That's the effort. Like they're putting the foot in the door, so let's open the door a little more and let them in. So that's the effort. So most of the training I've had has been this. Again, the struggle there is work, there are established structures, and they find it very difficult to change that or disrupt that. They're like, okay, we have existed like this, our finances are like this, our leadership structure is like this, so we find it very difficult to bring in sensitization. But I feel if the thought exists, it can be done. Definitely make space for persons to speak their truth, come and discuss what's going on. I'm not saying forcing them to out themselves or forcing them to reveal their stories, but if like say Muhammad is an activist of that sort who knows how to create a safe space, engage with them, understand how a safe space can be created. I'm a big believer safe spaces can be created in corporate
Yes.
sectors. So please make that as a first effort. Have conversations. I've been part of many organizations, even the ones which are committed to gender equity, actually have no curiosity for queer persons. They're like, okay, they always have very wishy-washy language. They want to portray themselves as being queer friendly, non-binary friendly, but really don't invest any deep thought into it. So please educate yourself. For us also as queer persons, the effort, the mental labor we put is respecting you, and is an effort for creating an environment where queer persons after us, or us as us also in this lifetime feel better. So please make an effort. Don't always think that for every doubt I can go to the queer person and clarify or something of that sort. As an ally, that's a responsibility that you can take on to educate yourself. So create a safe space. From there, a lot can start. So if a safe space begins and there is discussion, maybe that can be the launch pad for your sensitization manual, where you put down like what language is acceptable, what microaggressions are and what are not acceptable, if microaggressions count as harassment, little things like this. Also, dressing is a big thing in corporate offices. There are rules to it, how people present themselves, and usually that's very binary. Management levels can take and make an effort there and, put down rules that, okay, if there is a non-binary person or even otherwise, let's not attach so much importance of the binary on the dresses. I
Yeah.
think we are grown-up people. We know what is appropriate dressing for an office. The only problem which comes is, oh, this is male, but you are female, but this sort of conversation. So that
True.
also counts as harassment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do feel that this whole pink washing that companies do, where
Mm-hmm.
Pride Month comes in, everybody's logo changes, people do a lot
Yeah.
of very
Yeah.
short-term gimmicky thing.
Yeah.
Please stop looking at it as a gimmick, because then you are insulting the whole point of what, how it began and why it began. Pride Month is a very political, a very passionate campaign. It's not a marketing gimmick. So
True.
one of the ways of respecting it is, don't look at it as a month-long thing, but as a year-long, always existing thing, where persons are going to be your employees throughout the year, not just for the Pride.
Mm.
So um, be open to that inclusion, not as an afterthought, but as a default of what you do.
Mm.
Um, One way of understanding intersections also is this: your hiring policies have to change. If your
Mm-hmm.
hiring policies are hiring the same kind of people from the same colleges, people who look the same, talk the same, then clearly it's not a diverse team. And there
Mm-hmm.
clearly is never going to be diverse thinking. So if your hiring is better, more intersectional and more diverse, automatically the wheels will start turning and you will find your offices changing. Because see, you can't have a non-disabled person creating the module for your disability inclusion. That's not fair. Not that they can't do it. That's not the point. The point is their perspective is very different. They don't have the lived experience for it. So hiring a disabled person will immediately start bringing in some change in terms of disability inclusion. The language, your office structure itself, how your online meetings run, whether there are captions, whether there is ISL, ASL, whatever. So, slowly things which you have not thought about will come. So, I think corporates can do a lot. I appreciate and admire the companies who are making an effort, but they need to be year round and should start with bringing in more people and also engage with us. There are other formats, there are other channels to engage with us. Hire us as consultants, hire us as auditors, so that we
Mm-hmm.
can audit your policies and see how you
Yes.
function and make suggestions.
Yes. Yes.
Have training sessions with us. We'll tell you how to go about things, how to be a better ally, how to be more effective. So put your money um, in actions and not just in marketing gimmicky things.
I request all the corporate people to just contact Shruti to just get such amazing, insightful points, Shruti. Thank you so much. I
Okay.
think you kind of covered everything and summarized on this answer. I'm just everyone are huh. So Mohammed and Ghazal, if you feel like adding anything, please feel free to do. Um Anything?
I'm just gonna give a quick sort of anecdote
Mm-hmm.
that I heard from a friend who works in a corporate, which is
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, very inclusive and diverse, and they do their Pride Month properly and everything. Um, and this friend of mine comes to office one morning, and this team lead of his says, in a very conspiratorial tone, "Hey, did you check that mail?" And so the mail was actually from a team member, a girl who had come out to everyone as a lesbian. And so, um, you know, basically it was, this is who I am. And it was a coming out email. And the team lead is treating it as as though it's a topic for gossip, or, some mouth-watering new information in the. And this is a corporate, like a respected corporate, where all the systems are in place and everything, and your inclusion and diversity is a thing. So that's what I want to say. Like, I've also been invited to give some talks on in Pride months to corporates, and they give you that 20-minute slot, and they think their job is done, right? But there's a lot more work that still remains to be done, and of course Shruti covered everything that needs to
Yes.
go into that.
Thank you, Ghazal. Thank you for mentioning that. Mohammed, anything last thing, anything that
Yeah,
you want to add
just
on this?
small,
Or
small
yes,
this thing to
keep it
the
as short as you can.
yeah,
Yes, yes. Yes.
corporates. That I think working in UN, I've dealt with corporates a lot. We deal with corporates a lot every day, and we see two sides of the same coin. We see a United Nations that talks about yeah, inclusion, diversity, and include everyone, love everyone. But we also see a corporate side of it, and it's very disturbing and tenseful as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing important about when we talk about corporates is that the fact is that we cannot separate, the hand corporate has played in pink washing, and
Mm-hmm.
that is something that we quite often forget when it comes to Pride, because when Pride comes over and they're like, "Yay, free goodies here, take a rainbow badge and take a rainbow cup," and
Mm-hmm.
then you sort of forget afterwards, like, we exist and our needs exist. And then again comes another June, and then they're like, "Yay, gender neutral bathrooms, we'll give you another rainbow colored tag," and that keeps accumulating. So I feel like all our concerns get accumulated, but none of the action is taken. And action is taken, yeah, we get a you get a party in June and you get that tag, and then your concerns are not heard for the next year, and so on and so forth. I also believe, as mentioned by Shruti and Gazal, is that they just feed off your labor and utilize you and exhaust you so much beyond your ability, and then they expect you to constantly educate them when they readily have everything ready by June, and in terms of what they want to do, and so on and so forth. They stand in all these allyship movements that they run. I feel that by demolishing allyship movements and becoming more in hand with solidarity movements is how I think corporates can go ahead. At least start showing your solidarity and not your allyship. I do not believe in allyships. I feel allyships are fluke. The reason I say this is because it is all shiny and performative, whereas solidarity is the real messy work that you have to get behind the wheels and really work on a top level to create changes and bring out changes. So when we say about that, we also have to understand that the pay scale of how for example, if a queer person is leading an event, we have to look at if they're getting paid for it, or if it's just free labor for the means of education, or if they're being given
Yeah.
goodies at the end. We do have to understand the person does have to manage their survival in the end, and living these days has become quite expensive. So a couple of coupons from a food place is not gonna deal with it. It's not gonna cut it. You have to pay
Or a
them.
plant. They
Pay
get
Yeah.
the
for the
plants.
labor. Absolutely, you have to pay for the labor. They're not spending 2 hours, 2 3 hours speaking about so and so without having to be paid for the labor that they are doing.
Yeah.
And it's high time that queer people start asking for it too. And I mean, if you are offered for something, ask for it. How much you're gonna pay, and that shows their solidarity if they are going to pay you for it, and pay for the efforts that you're gonna put for it. I think
Yes,
I
yes.
just have that much.
I think that's a very important point to end up with. We spoke so many things, very insightful conversation, and solidarity is what we have to invite and us encourage people to be. So with this point, this panel discussion comes to a closure, and thank you so much for joining us for this session. It was a very, very insightful conversation over the last minutes. For and I am sure our audience has learned a lot of new things, and you can approach each one of us through a DM if you need help or want to talk. But please be humane and do not trigger one another. If you like the session or its parts, it would be available on the Cyberblog India's social media handles. Please do share and help us spread the word. Once again, thank you so much. It was an amazing panel discussion. Each and every one, we do not have Pearl, and due to some personal reasons, Pearl is not going to join back, but we're going to miss Pearl on this closure. But thank you, everyone. Gazal, Shruti, Mohammed, and Pearl, and also Souvik. We missed Souvik as well. So, on behalf of all the panelists and the Cyberblog India team, thank you everyone one last time. Before we say bye for the day and conclude this year's conference, there is an important message from the Cyberblog India team that I would like to read out for you. So, cyber crimes can happen with anyone, be it us or you. If you are facing an incident, irrespective of how difficult the situation seems right now, please do not give up. There is always a solution. Please seek help and reach out. There are so many organizations and support groups that can help you, and it is not just us. But do not give up. Remember that even if heaven were to fall apart, we will be there for you. Thank you so much, everyone. It has been a privilege to moderate this session. I hope you have a lovely evening and a great start to the coming week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Shilok, for being such a great moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilok, and yay to the team. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Cyberblog India. Bye.
Love.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye bye.